Everybody in the world, no matter who they are, where they are, or when they are, will probably at some point have heard of the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. But I'd wager that not quite so many people have heard of Mitsubishi's other Evo, the Pajero Evolution. And this month at Manor Park Classics, we are privileged to have one of 2,693 cars built. So to explain what this lifted, bewinged thing is and why it exists, let's start with the basics and with what people know. The Lancer Evolution, an homologation special based on Mitsubishi's small saloon car with added four-wheel drive, a big turbocharged engine and loads of other rally trickery in order to make it into what they hoped would be a World Rally champion. The story of the Lancer Evolution begins at the start of the 1990s, but the Pajero Evolution goes back a bit further than that, to 1985 in fact, when Mitsubishi first won the Dakar Rally. If you're not familiar with what the Dakar is, then it's like a normal rally, but on steroids. In the Paris-Dakar, you don't do little tiny special stages here and there. You are going to be flinging yourself off sand dunes, going across entire continents, hence why you need something a little bit more heavy duty than a little saloon car with four-wheel drive. The Paris-Dakar is something to behold, probably the most grueling mainstream rally competition in the world. And between 1985 and 2007, the Mitsubishi Pajero won it 12 times. 12 times Mitsubishi were victorious. And at the end of the 1990s, in 1997, Mitsubishi brought us this road-going version of their Dakar Rally hero. This was built to satisfy the T2 regulations of the Dakar Rally, which allowed modified street cars. T1 was normal street cars, so a standard Mitsubishi Pajero would have fitted into the T1 class. But the Pajero Evolution is very much in T2. They required 1,000 cars to be built for homologation purposes, and what Mitsubishi did was take a normal Pajero, pull the body off the top of it, and then throw everything else away. Start from scratch and put under this two-door car with its silly box arches and huge shoulders on it, double wishbone suspension, locking differentials of course, and limited slip differentials, front and rear. And then they added under the bonnet of it a dual overhead camshaft 3.5 litre V6. Producing, in the greatest of Japanese performance car traditions, 276 brake horsepower. That's 276 brake horsepower, just like absolutely everything did. Safe to say, these make quite a lot more than 276 brake horsepower. But what we're left with is a small 4x4 with the biggest shoulders you'll ever see, with enormous rally art flaps on it, because who doesn't love a big flap? Additional mirrors on it, huge chunky all-terrain tyres, an incredible lift kit, and then at the back, these kind of fins. It looks like a cartoon character rather than a production car, but here it is. This car was imported from Japan in the year 2000. It's a 1997 car, and that means that here at Manor Park Classics, as I've said, I can live something that I never thought I would actually live. Because I'm going to pretend I'm now doing the Dakar, albeit at 30 miles per hour on paved public roads, but hey ho, let's go for a drive. You know, when you get into an off-roady kind of vehicle, I'm not talking a Ford Puma, you know, stupid crossovers, I'm talking a proper off-road vehicle, a Range Rover maybe, let's say. You kind of step up into it. You don't step up into this car, instead you climb up into it. Just the lift on it is absolutely ridiculous. So let's have some ignition. I have my four-wheel drive indicator in the center. I have, of course, my low range, high range stuff all down the bottom. And we have a lovely, great big V6. So in this interior, I have, first of all, additional gauges across the top of the dashboard. I have a compass on the right hand side. I have oil pressure in the centre. I have battery voltage on the left hand side. I'm losing my marbles, aren't I? Goodness gracious me. And we have fake carbon around the gauges as well, just to bring a little bit of, you know, classic late 90s Japanese car chintziness to what is otherwise a very, very normal dark grey interior. We do have Recaros, however, with a cool pattern on them, so that is cool, I suppose. This car is an automatic. You could also get a manual if you liked, but the vast majority of these were automatics. And immediately from the off, you can tell that there's something to this that isn't normal Mitsubishi Pajero, because it makes stupid noises. Yeah, they don't usually make this kind of noise, these cars, but this one most certainly does. And if I was pretending to be on the Dakar, the illusion's kind of broken by the fact that I'm on paved roads, having to do paved road speeds, but hey, we can imagine nonetheless. Pretend we're all 5 for a second. The first thing that's obvious about this car is how commanding it feels. I mean, yes, any Pajero is like this, I suppose, but you sit so high up in this thing and you have such a brilliant glass house to which to see out of that, yeah, it's just ridiculous. And pootling along here at normal speeds, you can't really tell that there's anything different about this car. It's only really when you open the taps that you get that engine singing and you start to figure out what's what. What is funny, however, when you get into a corner or you pull out of it like this, once the transmission wakes up, that is how flat it rides. You don't expect a car of such height, of such mass, to actually have any kind of ability whatsoever, but this thing, it corners like an evolution. So we can come up to this roundabout now at perfectly legal speeds, but absolutely chuck it round. And you can feel everything working beneath you and the body remaining just so flat. It's only because the centre of gravity is so high and I'm sat so high in the car that I'm getting flung side to side. I'm very thankful in that case for these Recaro seats. What a silly thing. What a silly, silly car. I don't think I've ever quite driven something with such a mad split personality, because this thing, you don't want to naturally drive it any quicker than you would a normal one because, as I said, of the height and of the automatic transmission, etc. But then suddenly you turn it on and it just turns on. It's just an absolutely ridiculous thing. It's confusing to drive. And beneath me, as I'm now cruising along at very normal speeds, you can hear the tyres and you can hear the suspension all doing its thing beneath you. It's very, very clear, no matter what you're doing, that this is something important. It's something different. It's naturally performing very, very differently to anything else. I so wish I could go on some kind of off-road trail today and just see how capable this thing is. Not at traversing it, but traversing it at high speeds, which you can absolutely feel this thing can do. To say that it drives like a Lancer Evolution would be just false. It doesn't drive like a Lancer Evolution. There's so much more mass going on here. The centre of gravity is totally wrong. And of course that engine note, you don't get that in a little 4-cylinder Lancer. There is something so very, very proper about this, but just totally unexpected. My brain can't quite comprehend it, and I've not seen that in a car in a long time. I can't say I knew what to expect from this car going into driving it, but it just befuddles me in a really strange sense. The flatness of this thing, the way it kind of, the chassis and the gearbox as well wants you to hustle it, but it doesn't feel like that kind of car at all to actually be sat here. It is absolutely ridiculous. But if you think you might be able to make sense of this car, goodness knows I can't, then do please follow the link in the description. Have a look at the advert for this car. Have a look at all the photographs on our website. Have a look at the write-up as well. And even come and have a look at it for yourself. Because it's lost on me, this thing. It's just mental. What a silly car, but a good car.